Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Needs No Words. She was diagnosed with autism and ADHD in 2022, so has gone most of her life not knowing why she had certain behaviours that she couldn't explain. Girl with Autism, her account on Instagram, or Cat, as she's known to friends and family, now works in childcare and is using her platform to help raise awareness of what it's been like growing up masking, the traits that come with having both of these conditions, and the effect it continues to have on everyday life. Cat, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on. Can you start by talking us through your childhood, specifically at school? You must have felt different to the other children in the classroom, but I suppose what were the main signs that you felt that something wasn't right?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one because it was such a long time ago that I have to try and I've had a look back through school reports and been talking to my mum about it, and obviously we had to dig up a lot of this information when I was undergoing my diagnosis and stuff. But yeah, it was definitely things were difficult. I was very slow learner in kind of every aspect, to be honest. I didn't walk until I was about 2, so my parents took me to places because they thought there must be something wrong with her, and they just said, no, I just think she likes to be where she is. And that kind of continued, I suppose. When I went to school, things were okay. They were okay. I was quite a happy kid, but I suppose where I could see now that I had to have things my way. So if I had games, they had to be played in the way that I wanted them to be played. I was quite happy to play on my own. I could, be in the garden and you could just give me a couple of flowers and a leaf or something. I'd be running up and down the garden, singing away, doing whatever at my own kind of pace, and my mum would always just be like, I don't know what she's doing, but she seems to be having a good time. So, but then what would end up happening is any sort of change or anything like that would just set me off completely. Obviously my mum and dad used to refer to them as tantrums. Now I know that the tantrums and a meltdown are very, very different things. Definitely wasn't controllable, which I knew. But going into school, yeah, I think it was very overwhelming for me, definitely. The classroom was very busy. I used to go at this a lot because of the lights. I didn't like the lights. I refused to eat any of the food. And when I came home, I just used to have pasta and cheese. That was all that my mum could get me to eat, was pasta with and it couldn't be melted. It had to just be on the top. If it was melted, that was not okay. And I'd have to have my same squash that I've always had, which I actually, to be honest, hands up, still have to this day, and still get very upset if it's out of stock. So yeah, there was lots of different things. I didn't cope well in friendship groups, in groups as a whole. I didn't really get that. I didn't really understand that. And everything was quite difficult learning wise. I mean, my parents were called in a lot about just because I was falling behind, and my attention span was shockingly bad. And it would be a lot of the time that, oh, Catherine could do it if she applied herself, or things like that, or and then at some point the skin picking started. And I think that was probably, I don't know where that came from. I think it might have been a result of just being ridiculously bored. I used to get really, really bored. So there was that, but I think it was difficult. But I think early childhood, it was okay. When I got into primary and secondary school was when things started to go a bit south, as they would call it.
When you say they started to go south, what do you mean by that?
So I should say that in year 3 I went to a school locally. I went to Grove in Tring, and there was a lot of discussions about me sort of struggling at school and easily distracted and all of these kind of things, and getting very emotional, not being able to share, not being able to play, in this sort of way. And one day I just remember, like, I do kind of remember this weirdly because I was so young, but I remember just sitting there and just going, I've had enough. I think it must have been about 2 o'clock or something like that. And I was just like, I've had enough. And I got up and I left the school grounds, like fully left the school grounds, and went and crossed the road outside and everything. And my parents were called in. And from there I was moved into private school, because basically it was just like, she needs a bit more support. We don't really know what's going on, but it doesn't seem to be, something's going on. We would, yeah. And luckily I was very fortunate that my parents were in the position to be able to move me into a fee-paying private school, which they did. But that in itself didn't really solve anything. So as much as it was kind of, there was a smaller class, that was all it was. It was a smaller class. There was no,
but all the same sensory overload. Yeah,
it was all the same stuff. Everything was the same in my reports. Catherine's not paying attention. If she's not interested in something, she's not going to do it. She's getting up and walking out. She's sometimes like, I used to get so bored, I'd just go and like spend a bit of time like faffing about in toilets, and I'd come back again, and then I'd probably go out again or something like that. Or and then I really, really didn't get on with anyone. Like, friendships were really hard for me. I just didn't get on. I did get on with some girls in the school before, but I definitely did not get on, with anyone in this new school. And that kind of continued. I was very good, like, creatively. I could sing and I could act and stuff like that. So they suggested that maybe I audition for a local art school, which I did, the one in Tring. I did get in, but it's still, things were still difficult. It didn't really get any better, and I think as I went into teenage years, things just got worse. Behavioural wise, I started not wanting to go into school quite early on, faking illness, doing anything to kind of get out of going to school. And I think I had very, very long school days as well. It was like 8 till 6, and I was absolutely exhausted. And I didn't cope well with that at all. I used to hide away, like assembly in the morning. I hated that, so I used to hide away in like the girls' toilets, and like they used to try and come find me, like, you can't stay down here by yourself. And then I'd be like having a meltdown, and that was, year 7, year 8. Do you know what I mean? So I knew, I felt different because I knew that wasn't normal reactions to just going into the assembly room. I knew that not being able to sit still to the point where I have to leave the room, I knew that wasn't normal. But I didn't know what to do with that. I mean, you just don't know. No one knew. I didn't know. So you just kind of, I suppose I just got on with it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So you were diagnosed later, sort of in your life, and we'll touch on that. But when you were at school, was there any explanation given to why you were kind of exhibiting these behaviours and why you were finding certain things more tricky?
Do you mean in the sense of like, stuff like did more come to light when I got my diagnosis? I then did more things make sense? Is that what you mean?
I mean, when you were at school, was there any indication given to your parents that it could be autism, that it could be ADHD?
No, and I think largely that was down to the fact that I was also diagnosed epileptic.
Okay.
So I was having a lot of seizures, and that was kind of, that overtook everything really, because I know I was sort of like in and out of hospitals and things like that, and I wasn't at school that much. So I think a lot of the time they put that down to just me not being regulated to the fact that I didn't have a normal routine. I was, but what I ended up doing was I used it in my advantage. I learned how to, from talking to people about what happened, I learned how to make them up. So I would make them up to get out of school, and it would be an instant sent home. Oh, she's had a seizure, she needs to go home.
Okay.
So I think it would have been, now looking back, I think it was almost an impossible thing to probably diagnose because of the amount of masking I was doing at this point.
Yeah.
Masking my symptoms, the amount of like times I was being sent home from school. I started to get out of everything, blaming it on everything, going, oh, I'm unwell, I need to go home, and they go, okay. So I think that whenever I got tired, they would send me home because they'd be like, she can't focus, she needs to go home. So I think that largely got clouded over. Do you know what I mean? I think it all kind of in the end got just sort of put onto that. She's unwell. I was also on really like strong drugs for epilepsy as well, which were tiring me out and stuff like that. So I think maybe if that hadn't have all been in play as well, maybe some of these signs and symptoms would have got picked up on, but that kind of overshadowed everything, really.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you were finally diagnosed at 30?
I was, yeah.
So how did that feel?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I had like brain surgery from my epilepsy at like in my early 20s. So after that, everything was like it worked. And basically the idea was, you're now free of these things, go on your way. And all of the stuff that I was kind of masking or putting back, on this other stuff, all kind of came out to play. So it was from early 20s until late 20s that everything was just really confusing, to the point of, I hit 30 or whenever it was, 29. And I think I had my first real kind of just like almost like a breakdown during the first lockdown. But then it didn't come about until I started just being honest. I sat in front of my GP and I was just like, I can't cope. I literally cannot cope and I don't know what's wrong with me. And he suggested that I speak to a psychologist. And it was the psychologist who picked it up, who was straight away just saying things to me like, you don't stop playing with your hands, Are you nervous or what's, you can just talk freely to me, your parents aren't here, no one's here to look over you, it's just me and you. And she would just notice things, like she said to me, like, you're covering your eyes, and I'd be like, well, that's a bit bright. And she goes, okay, I'll turn the light down. So is that better? I was like, yeah, that is a lot better actually. She goes, okay. And it was just little things like that. So yeah, I mean, it was good. It's good to get the diagnosis,
Yeah. How did it feel when did she float to you, okay, I feel like based on the time I've spent with you, I feel like there might be neurodiversity here?
Yeah.
And how did that feel when she said it?
Well, I had a few sessions with her actually, and she picked up on so many like little traits that I had and little, funny things, and she would, in the nicest way possible, she would press kind of trigger points to kind of see how I would react to things, and she noticed my reactions and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it was good to have her there. And she sort of said to me, like, after about, I think we had 3 or 4 sessions, to be like 4 or 5 hours that I spoke to her, not at the same time, but like 1 hour, 2 hours kind of sessions. And she said to me, yeah, I think we're looking at, I think we're looking at something that I don't think that you would have even thought of. And I want to put you in touch with someone who specializes in a diagnosis of, specializes in doing a diagnosis of ADHD and autism. And I was just a bit like, what? I kind of was just, it never occurred to me at all. I mean, I don't know if it was just, I didn't know anyone that was autistic or with ADHD or anything like that. But to her, it was obvious. It was obvious. She said, to be honest with you, I knew in the first session. Wow. I needed to go through the motions and fully get to know you and go through your school reports and everything, because I didn't want to waste your time by putting you in front of a psychiatrist. But it was pretty obvious to me almost straight away that you're just showing signs. I mean, it's all over these school reports, especially early childhood. So yeah, I got put in touch with the psychiatrist, and then I obviously they don't get they can't get diagnosed at the same time, as you well know. So the first one was ADHD, which I was adamant I didn't have, because I've looked up classic ADHD symptoms and I just thought I don't relate to this. It's not. But he said that I tested very highly for ADHD. And then it kind of went from there, basically.
Did it help explain a lot? Because there must have been times at school where you just, as you said, you felt very different. And then all of a sudden you're being told you've got these things and you have to learn more about what that means. And then did it help explain the certain ways you were behaving?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first thing I related to was probably masking.
Yeah.
When I started reading up on masking. But to be honest with you, I didn't even, my first thought was, give me a drug to fix me. That was my first thought. And they trialed me on different drugs, and I thought, this will fix me. This will make my brain work normally. And each one I reacted to badly, and each one was a nightmare. And the process of that whole medication cycle was just really quite, I mean, I just didn't react well to any of them, to be honest. And so at first I was really frustrated because I just wanted the fix. I just wanted to be given the fix. I didn't have any interest in reading up on what any of it meant for me.
Yeah.
I was just like, I want a solution straight away. Again, probably very ADHD type of trait, just get this away now.
Yeah.
Make me
Fix
better
it.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. Okay, great, fix it. We've just given you a load of money, fix me. And it was almost just like, there you go, bye-bye, get on with your life. And so yeah, but then the reason why I started looking up on it was actually when I started working with a couple of autistic children. I changed careers a couple of years ago now, and I started I was very blessed to be able to work with 2 or 3 children that were on, or starting to get a diagnosis or things like that. And so much of my day was just spent, I don't know what it was, I just warmed to them instantly. Like, I warmed to all kids, but these guys were like, I was like, we need to keep you safe. Like, you're really, you're awesome. And I think that when I started reading up on, it took me going home and looking, right, how can I help these kids on a daily basis, to then once I started looking at the stuff going,
actually I need to help me as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And that's how it came about. And that was probably about a year later, to be honest. I was very stroppy because I didn't get my fix so I kind of just ignored the whole thing and was just like, oh, this is pointless. So we spent all this money, you've just given me a couple of diagnoses and that's it. Yeah. Whereas actually I realized that so much of it is just comes from actually just reading up about it and listening to other people, and it came about because of that. Like, if I don't know where I would have been, whether I would have started up this account, whether I would have done anything if it wasn't for that experience of wanting to help other people, to then start to learn, oh, okay, these things are probably what I struggle with too. That's interesting.
To learn about yourself.
Yeah, you learn about yourself sometimes through other people. And I suppose I thought, well, if you're going around saying there's nothing wrong with you, you're great, you just work differently, your brain just works differently, we need to just work with, then why am I not applying that to myself? Why am I trying to put myself in a box all the time to try and fit in with, why am I doing it to myself? If I wouldn't do it to someone else, why am I doing it to me? And that's really, it was only a year ago that I started being interested in what this means for me. And that's been, an interesting process so far, but rewarding in many ways.
It's fascinating to hear your journey, actually. So you were diagnosed with autism and ADHD. So how does having both of those diagnoses affect you?
So some days it does feel a bit like a tug of war in my brain, can't lie. one of them say it's like you've got two sides almost that kind of, I think I was saying to Amy before, like it wasn't even a known thing to diagnose the two. I think it was like 2013 or something like that, that it was the two got diagnosed together. It was either you had this or you had that, or you didn't have any at all. So for so many people having a dual diagnosis, it does mean that there's a big crossover between the two. And sometimes they can work against each other in some ways. Like I'll maybe want to do something or feel like, oh, I really, really want to do that. But then my autism side will want to keep me in my bedroom, in my safe place, things like that. So I guess I don't explore, as much because I'm scared of things. And that frustrates the other side of my brain that's kind of going, you need to do all these things, and you want to be all adventurous, and you want to go out and make all these friends, but then also friends and people scare me. So I think it all kind of it can be a bit confusing, but it's I suppose it's taking it a day at a time. And I think not understanding the two has definitely had an effect on me, mentally. Because it's like the real weight that I carry sometimes. Like, would it have been different if I'd have known, like, I didn't need to lie about being unwell and all these things at school? Could I not have just said, I'm really not doing so well? Because now you read so many things where you just think, I could have just communicated, but I didn't know how to. And sometimes I still don't know how to. I still really struggle. I come up with challenges on a daily basis. And it's just, I think one of the other things I really struggle with is just trying to figure out what everyone means when they speak all the time, because my brain's going like a million miles an hour, but then I'm someone that's incredibly empathetic and stuff like that, and I want to help people and stuff like that. My brain just, I don't know how to behave in certain situations, and my brain just gets overloaded, and I don't know how I'm kind of supposed to respond. So trying to get through the day with this jumble that is my brain can be quite exhausting. But I think there's huge positives for being, neurodiverse and stuff. There's amazing positives, like we've all got strengths and we've got tools now, and I've got tools. And I can ask for help now that I've had this diagnosis. I can say, look, this is really tough for me. I don't understand what's happening right now. I need a timeout, or things like that. And that's amazing. That's helped me in so many ways, because now I can actually say, like, no, I have this thing. I need these accommodations. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do my job. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to cope today. Like, I need this. And I do it for me now. I'm not trying to hide who I am. I'm just trying to be like, okay, but the two are difficult to manage. They are difficult to manage. I think they will always be tricky to manage, and some days it does feel like, really, really tricky, and I do get my days, but I cope a lot better today, definitely. And I'm glad that I know. That is the one thing I would say. I'm glad. It's good to know that you're not just going crazy.
I was going to say, when you were at school, very little was probably known about autism and ADHD, and things were dealt with very differently. And I keep saying, I know social media has its bad points, but I also think it's really raising awareness of autism and ADHD, and it's helping teachers, it's helping people across the board have a better understanding. And I'm sure you're getting that at school, because a lot of the teachers are having to go on more courses. There's more children in the classroom with additional needs. Do you feel in your school environment that you're able to sort of showcase your traits and they kind of be accepted and dealt with accordingly?
Yeah, I think it's better. Where I work now is good for that. I think there could be more help for adults I can't speak for all workplaces, of course, but I think there can be more. I think that there could be more in place. I think in a lot of places there should be someone that is there as a support in every workplace, is there as like someone that knows about this stuff. And I know that's probably quite tricky, like maybe that's not something that's possible, but I hope it will be possible one day.
Yeah.
Because you can get the best out of people despite if their brains work differently. But I think there's a long way to go with that, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel that I am at a place now where I could talk to the people that I work with and say, look, this is really tricky for me. I appreciate it's going to be a bit difficult to get me out of the room right now so that I can write this in a safe and quiet place. But that is what I'm going to need to be able to get this done, sort of thing. And I think it is difficult. Sometimes I do feel a bit like a nuisance and a bit like I'm coming up with things to try and, it does feel a bit uncomfortable for me to ask for accommodation still. It's not something that comes naturally to me. Would I prefer to be someone that could just do it in the space that I've been given to do it and just crack on and not have to ask for different things? Like, yes, I would, but I have to work with who I am and what's going to work for me. So it's a lot easier to ask now that I think I have the confidence to ask. I think that's what I lacked before, was the confidence and the fear of getting shut down and things like that. Whereas I think having the confidence and just having the strength to just be like, can you help me here? I can't do this, or it's getting a bit too much for me.
Yeah.
I think that's half the battle, to be honest, just having the confidence to ask.
Can you use an example of when maybe work could get quite overwhelming for you?
Yeah, if so I can deal with a lot of noise, which is good. But the one thing is probably for me is my workplace can be very noisy and chaotic, and if I have to sit down and say write up a report or write up something about a child, or put in something that's very important, like what they ate for lunch, or things like that, I then struggle to tune out of what is going on around me and focus on doing this, because I have to, the level that I have to think of, like, right, what am I writing here? What do I want to say to pitch to this child? And then say, for example, they need you, or I can't then be like, no, I have to go to them and be like, okay, what's wrong? Can I, and then I have to go back. So it's very hard for me to get in the zone. And then by the time I've gone back, I can't remember what I'm doing and things like that. So it take me a very long time, which is why I've kind of suggested, okay, maybe I could finish this particular thing off when I'm not in a room full of screaming tiny humans. Because I don't really know what I'm saying, and I can't tune my brain out in time. Whereas there's other people that can just sit there and just bash it out. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how they do it. But they can sit there and they can do it, and they can tune out and stuff like that. But that's an example of probably one of the only things that I find challenging in my role. I think everything else is fine.
And change of routine.
Yeah. So
Let's discuss that.
Yeah. So my employee's very good. They don't tend to move me around, which is good. But if I do get moved around, or say if I'm needed in a different room or something like that, it's very rare. But if it gets sprung on me, I don't handle that very well, because it's a whole new situation. I've got my routine. I know what I do every day. And so that can massively throw me off, especially if I don't see it coming, which sometimes can happen in my line of work. You can't always plan for everything, and that's fair. And it's being able to understand from that point of view that that's just sometimes what goes on. But then for my brain to go, yeah, but oh, wow, my God, I can't do this. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. So it's just like an instant kind of, it's where it's very difficult, because there's no way I can really operate in a world where something is not all of a sudden thrown upon me. Like, this is always going to happen at some point. And I think sometimes, like the other day, for example, I just had to be like, look, I'm just gonna have a meltdown, and then I'm gonna be okay. And that's just what's gonna happen, because sometimes I don't have control over it. I wish I did. And I can only do as much as I can. And I've got a lot better, a lot better. But yeah, it was just I came in thinking I was going to have a certain plan to my day, and it all just, and I was like, "Ugh," and I just couldn't really cope with it. And then all the embarrassment comes with it, of the fact that you've had a meltdown at work, and it's just like, oh God, and you're an adult, and it's like you shouldn't be, you should just get on with it. But obviously, I just have to try and be kind to myself and go, do you know what? It is what it is. That is extremely challenging for me. So,
and the more people understand about autism and ADHD, the better that they can deal with those moments when you can't cope. What I'm really interested in is, you've touched on it a bit about the juice, but do you have things in day-to-day life that you're very routined with? And if so, what are some of the examples?
Yeah, I have a specific, I have a thing that I do every day, like without fail. I'll get up. I have to have all of my clothes like lined up, like it has to be in a certain order of where it goes. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And then I come downstairs, have the same breakfast every day without fail, have the same juice. I have this green juice thing that I like, but I don't like to do it myself because I don't like the colour. So my dad has to make it for me every day. And he puts it on the little table. So every time I come down, it's on the table. They've just got on board. They're just like,
love this.
They've just got on board with it. They're just like, you know what, whatever. So he does that for me every day, and he's just like, just don't. So I don't look at it, and I just quickly go down, and then I'm like that. And then but I have to have my same juice every single day without fail. I have to sit in my same seat like every morning, all that kind of stuff. And then I leave at a certain time, and but then the ADHD comes in where I cannot leave on time. I get up, it doesn't matter. I could get up at 5 a.m. and I'd have to be somewhere for 10 a.m. I'd still be late.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I think they've given up with me at work, because they're just like, you know what?
She'll turn up eventually.
You have to be here 1 minute before 8. It's fine. Just whatever. They've spoken to me about 3 times, and they're just like, you know what? Because I really do try. I'm like, right, I'm getting up early. And then I just go up to my room and get distracted by something, and then I've got to go. But I've got my set like stuff that I do like without fail. It's funny, but my dad was laughing the other day because I saw this video, and it was so me. It was like the salt and pepper have to be like, parallel to each other in one cupboard, but then the next cupboard, I'll just chuck something in it.
I've seen this, the Tupperware cupboard.
Yeah. And someone said it to me the other day and was like, this reminds me so much of you. Like, because it was always like, I understand it's not the same every time. Like, that has to be like that, but that's fine. I don't really care about that. That's fine. Like, I can be messy in that area and then not in that area. Like, it's very strange. But I do have. And if my mum asked me, what would you like me to make you do? Would you like me to make you anything for dinner? Pasta and cheese. Make sure it's not melted.
You still like that?
Every time. Make sure it's not melted.
That is so
and then
good.
Dad starts getting involved, and mum's like, please just step back. I need to do this.
I've got this. I know this.
Otherwise we're going to have a problem, and it's just not necessary. So there is always some things just never change, but that's fine, because my mum tells me it's endearing, apparently.
So
I'll go with it.
Can I ask you a question on something that you were talking about before? You were talking about having a meltdown at work. We experience meltdowns with Max. Have the meltdowns changed, and what do they look like now you're an adult?
So when I was younger, my impulse was really bad. So I used to grab, pinch, push, anything, especially my brother, who used to get it a lot. Sorry, Will. But I would honestly, I just throw things at him, like get very, very angry if he didn't do the right things. Now it's more, I kind of grew out of that, but now I will just get incredibly frustrated. I'll feel like instantly like this, just really, um, and it will just be like I'll just feel really warm and I'll just start to cry, and I'll just be like, sometimes I'll just stare blankly, and then there's this overwhelming emotion, and I usually just the tears will stop when they will want to stop. But usually what it does take is someone to come in and talk to me and be like, it's all right, it's okay. Because that's all I need a lot of the time. I don't need anyone to come in and necessarily fix me or try and psychologically understand what's going in my brain. Sometimes I just need to be told it's all right. And sometimes I just need a cuddle. Like the other day, one of my colleagues, she just gave me a cuddle. So it's all right. And I was like, okay. And then it wasn't long before it was one of my colleagues, it's someone that I'm very close, we've worked together a while now, and you guys know her very well. And she just come in and give me a cuddle and was like, it's okay. It's just going to be, I'm not, I know it sounds really overwhelming because you've just come in and it's the whole day and you've never done anything different for the whole day. So, but it's going to be okay. Just try and make the best out of this situation. You're going to learn, you might learn something new. And then it was just being allowed that time just to be by myself and to have my space. Because if people overload me and over, get, to me at that time, it's just not, I just need to be in a safe space. I need to just calm down and then I can hopefully go back to it. But they've got better. They used to be really, really bad. Like if my mum, if I didn't want to go to school and my mum was like, you need to go to school, like I would get not nice with her. I'd be pushing her, I'd be everything, like I hate you, like and that went into into kind of adult years. We'd have like these really horrible, and she was just, and now we talk and stuff like that, and she's always just like, I just didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. I didn't know why you wouldn't tell me why you were so unhappy. No one could understand at school. Like I just didn't know what to do. But now they're definitely, I still have them. I'm still going to have them, but they're better. So they've changed, but that sort of like emotional crying and just, that's near enough the same as what I used to be like kind of when I was younger.
Yeah.
Really, that it's just it's almost just like an extreme emotion. That's what I would say. And it's suddenly it just happens, and sometimes they can happen without warning. It's just something's triggered me and gone.
Yeah.
So
you touched on it slightly earlier, but obviously now you're working with children with additional needs. So you must be able to pick up on some of their traits and know how to kind of help them deal with it, which is incredible. How has that kind of helped you? And do you think there is more support for children being diagnosed now?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's about the people, to be honest with you. I know people that have worked in places where it hasn't been too much of a thing. It's just been like, and now I work in a place where people really care. And I think that is so nice to be a part of. But overall, I think now that there are things in place, like there has to be. I don't think, I don't know, I don't work in a school, but I imagine, from speaking to the Senko where I work, I know that there's like proper procedures in place and blah, blah, blah. But I think at the age group I work with, it's crucial. It's crucial because it's their year before school. And it's very, very crucial that we have an idea of how to spot these things. But I think with a lot of, I think you can tell quite quickly. I can tell quite quickly whether there might be something there. I mean, they're so little, so it's difficult, but at that age, and I do think there is a lot more support, which is amazing, and I'm so happy about that. It makes me so happy to know that you know, people are like little tiny humans are getting diagnoses before they even get to school. I mean, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
Like, how great is that? Because they can go into the school system and have that support from the get-go.
And that
whether
understanding about themselves as well, and who they are and
yeah
why they find those things difficult. Why am I really triggered by lights or sound, or why am I finding it
yeah
difficult to make friends?
yeah but also I think it's equally important for like everyone to know about it. Do you know what I mean? Everyone to have some form of baseline understanding of this stuff, because I don't know, that's like a really big statement to make, but and that would obviously be in an ideal world that so many people would be more clued up on this stuff and because it is a silent, you know, for a lot of us it is a silent disability.
Yeah.
So the mental side of things, so people aren't always going to know if there's something going on. And I think that goes across a lot of things, you know, that touches on the mental health side of things as well, like not just this side of things, but obviously this is specific to this. But it's just one of those things where the more clued up people are and the more support there is, I think it could help change like society as a whole.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
In the future, that there's more awareness, because my one thing is always just like, yes, I'm different, but there's nothing wrong with me. I just see things a little bit differently to you.
Yeah.
Or to you or to you. And it takes is one person to be like, that's okay. That's fine. Like, how cool is that? Like, just be really positive about it. Like, because everyone has their things that they're good at and their things that they're not so good at. So it's always about like trying to find what people are good at and not necessarily always highlighting on things that people can't do or find tricky to do, but then helping them with that process too. And that's what's important. And I mean, I've only been working in what I'm working in for, you know, not even 2 years yet, nearly 2 years. But I hope that I will be going down that route. That's all I can hope for, that there'll be a way for me to go down that route so I can be a part of that, because it's really important to me. Like, it's for young children, the younger that we can sort this, the less, fingers crossed, there's going to be, you know, because I always wonder, like, if I'd had that support of just like, this is who you are, this is okay, how different things might have been. And I know you can't look back, there's no point, you can only look from now, but it's just one of those things that always crosses my mind. And I think it crosses the mind a lot of people who've had a late diagnosis of just like, okay.
But it also really relates to what you were saying earlier about your hope that actually in workplaces there'll be somebody there who understands in every single workplace. Well, actually, if people have diagnosis and understand who they are, then actually that's probably going to become a reality, because there'll be numerous people in any workplace who are going to say, actually, I've got ADHD, or I've got autism, or I'm dyslexic, or whatever it might be, and embrace that, champion it, and be confident to speak about it. And then I think people become more comfortable around them to talk about it, because I think that's the other thing, people don't always know how to react to these things. You know, the amount of people that when I've said, oh, that Max is autistic, oh, I'm really sorry, it's like, well, I don't know if I'm really sorry, like I don't really know how to take that. And I know that that comes from a really good place. They're not saying it you know, to be hurtful at all, but sometimes I think, oh, I don't know if I don't know if really sorry is the right terminology.
That lack of understanding.
And actually 100%, really sorry isn't the right terminology with what you're saying. Actually, it's just strengths and weaknesses, and we all have them.
No, I've definitely had that before, where I've said about, you know, and it's just been like, oh, bless you, and I'm like, oh no,
no,
don't say that. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. This is why I don't talk about it. Like, it was just like, no, I don't need to be blessed with anything. But then I sort of do understand at the same time. I'm like, I understand why you're saying that. That's
it comes
fine.
from a good place.
It's just a lack of like, absolutely. You know, and maybe that's the thing as a whole. Like maybe it's something that needs to be addressed in the school system. Maybe it's something they need to be taught about. I don't know if they are or not, or whether that's something in the curriculum, but maybe it's something worth teaching the neurotypical children in the class about, like, that this person, not this person, obviously, saying about, as in, this is what happens. There are people that are like this, and there are people that are like this, and it's all an inclusive. I've always thought there should maybe, hopefully in the future, there will be something like that, so then people are more understanding of it. Like, like the lanyards with the daisies, with the sunflowers on, or wherever they are, sunflowers.
Trying.
It's like I didn't
come across things in Max's school where they're talking about, what makes me me, and so I think there is a real shift, hopefully, towards that. Yeah.
No, I really hope so, because that sounds positive, because I think that that's a really, really good thing, because it's not anything to feel shameful of. Like, it's just who someone is. That's
and
it. It's not even,
Sorry, you mentioned there, Kat, about the positives of having these conditions as well. What are some of the positive things that have come out of both your autism and ADHD? Some of your traits.
Well, I can do my job better, to be able to be asked, to be able to have accommodations and things like that. I understand that, I am a very sensitive person, so I have to watch certain things, have to be mindful of certain things, and but ultimately I think the positives as well is the fact that, like, it's just being able to, a lot of people struggle with empathy, and that's not something that I struggle with. Like, that's not something that I struggle with. I'm one of I can instantly tell if someone's not okay. I can instantly be like, what's wrong, or whatever. Like, I can pick up things very quickly, and obviously that can be a bit emotionally, but also it is a positive thing.
Yes,
because it's having that ability to recognize, and that's not something that everyone has. It's that ability to be, when you've gone through difficult times in life, sometimes you can then be there for other people, because you can relate to them on a level where they feel like maybe they're the only person in the world that is feeling this way. And that is definitely a positive that I have. I'm like a very nurturing, empathetic person. And the positives regarding, just getting a diagnosis is just that I can learn more about what it means for me. I can, and like you said, you touched upon social media. Yes, social media can have its difficulties and things like that, and it can be, there can be negatives to it, but there can also be positives to it. And like, the being able to be honest on a platform, and have other people relating to it, or just reading other people's content and just going, oh my god, it makes me personally feel less alone with it all. I feel like, okay, I'm not like it's just, what is it, distinct entity or something like that. There are loads of people, and to know that there are lots and lots of people who have similar things to me makes me not feel as different. Because I know some people like, they like to feel different. I personally don't. I prefer to just, and I have a different way of thinking about things, and a different way of viewing things, potentially, to some people, but really I'm the same as loads and loads and loads of other people. And with social media, and with that, with the diagnosis now, I can go on this kind of like unmasking journey, which I'm at the very start of, but it's been a beautiful experience so far. And I can apply everything I'm learning into my job role, which is also amazing as well. So it kind of like, it's just going to be like a way of life.
So Girl with Autism, this is your new Instagram platform.
Yes.
Talk us through the motivation, I guess, for doing it. You've kind of highlighted that a little bit already. And what the journey's been like so far.
Well, I think when I started reading up about like autism, ADHD, the combo, all that kind of stuff, I realized that, okay, I'm not alone with this, for sure. And because I feel so passionate now about being open about it, I thought, well, what's the best way to spread awareness and to gain insight myself, and then to spread awareness, and to grow, my own support network of people, is to set up an account. And actually, I think it was largely to do with like seeing you guys' account as well. I think it's very brave as well, like what you're doing as well, just being so open about things, and I think that's really nice. And I just thought, well, maybe there's something in that. Maybe there's something in this. And actually, I've been really overwhelmed with the response. Like, it's been so lovely. And some of these people that I follow, their accounts are incredible. I mean, they're so creative. They're so amazing. Like, they've all got these, loads of them have got these different interests and things like that, which are amazing. And they're just trying to be themselves. And it's really cool. And all the memes are just hilarious as well. Like, they crack me up. I'm just like, oh my God. So I get like a proper laugh out of it as well. Like, some people post the most hilarious things. Like, me and my partner can relate to a lot of the things, like, oh God, yeah, that's you, isn't it? Like, and all stuff like that. And I just find it's just really funny. And honestly, my personal one, I don't even go on it. I've got another personal account, but I don't even use it anymore, because I'm just like, this is just fab. Like, I love it.
Autism.
Yeah, I just love it. I love the whole thing, and I hope to keep sort of, the more I learn, the more I'll try and share. And I think that's all we can do, is just, it's a great way to start the whole inclusive side of things, is to go on the things that probably people use the most, which is social media.
But that's a nice thing, because you're so raw and honest. If there's anybody listening, or somebody that's just searching, like Kirsty and I were at the start of our journey, for an account, or someone just to relate to us, if there's somebody that's just been diagnosed with autism, Googling and find your account, it's just so raw, so honest, and talking through some of the things that you've had to deal with, and making somebody else feel less alone. I just think it's brilliant.
It's comforting, I think.
Thank you. Yeah. And I always wanted to say, like, I always want it to be a place where, like, my DMs are open to anyone. Do you know what I mean? If anyone's just having a bad day, or struggling, or anything, like, that's fine, reach out. I think it's so important to talk and to connect, and to not sit alone. And sometimes you can connect with, like, a complete stranger, and if you relate to some of these traits, like, the likelihood is we'll probably have stuff in common. And I'm just kind of one of those people. I'm just like open book, like, now, because I can't afford not to be. Because I've done it for so many years, and it hasn't worked. And I remember sitting and just thinking, like, how is your life working out so far by not being yourself? And the answer was, it's not very well. So I thought, well, what if I try and be myself and just see what happens? And so far it's been a positive experience, and makes me feel like, no, I don't necessarily have to hide, even though sometimes, and I'm not amazing at it, sometimes I still do. I can still feel myself, when someone says, oh, I watched this on the weekend, my first response is, so did I, when I haven't watched it. Do you know what I mean? It's my first response is to go, yeah, so did I like that too. Or if someone is giving me a bit of a interesting vibe or whatever, I have this need to be like, make friends with them to see what it is that they don't like about me, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And validation seeking and stuff like that is still all in me massively. And I catch myself sometimes, and I go, whoa, stop. Like,
it's okay if you don't like the same thing.
And it's okay if someone doesn't like you. That's okay. Like, don't worry about it.
Can't be liked by everyone.
It's like, you can't be liked by everyone. But sometimes in my head, I literally have to give myself a little pep talk and go, it doesn't matter. Like, they don't even know you, so whatever. And you probably are a little bit annoying as well, so that's fine. You probably are really annoying. No, I'm joking, but it's been great. It's so far, it's been really, really good. And we'll just see where it goes. I'm really thankful for like other people's content as well, because it's incredible, including yourselves. So thank you for doing that.
No, not at all. I'm really excited for you, because from this point on, you can just be yourself, where for so long you've been having to mask so strongly, and it's been so misunderstood. What advice would you have for parents at the start of their journey thinking about getting a diagnosis for their child, but also for anyone listening that's thinking, I can relate to a lot of what Catherine said there. Maybe I should go and look into it.
Yeah. I think that firstly to address wait, I've already forgotten what you said. What was it? The first bit?
So advice for parents, and then
That's
advice,
it.
and then advice for anyone that's
there you go, classic.
thinking about getting a diagnosis.
Right, yeah. So for anyone thinking about getting diagnosis, I have found it incredibly empowering to know. I found it shows me how much I didn't like. I didn't think that I would have it, and now I'm like, oh, I obviously have it. Do you know what I mean? And now my life, I can, although it's not textbook, I mean, it's very, there's a wide range of stuff, and I think sometimes people see things and they go, oh no, I don't have that, so it can't be me. But if you are thinking, then why not? Do you know what I mean? Like, why not go and see? Why not look into it? I appreciate that NHS has a very, very long wait list, and it's quite difficult as well, especially with medication. But why not? If you feel that it would help you, then why not? Why not go for it and just see? Because there's really there's really nothing to lose, and you might gain a lot. And anyone at the start of, you mean the start of their journey with
parent, and also parents, if they're thinking about it as well. Would you say go, as young, like you said sort of earlier, the younger they are, the better to get a diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say the younger they are, the better, because the further they develop, the more stuff's going to come into play, and the support will get later and later. Do you know what I mean? I know it's easier said than done, but I think the most important thing, and I've heard this quite a lot actually, is that there's nothing wrong with someone, with a child, or with anyone that it has autism or ADHD. It's not. I don't even, sometimes it's referred to as an illness. I don't really like referring to it as an illness personally. I just think it's a brain that works a little bit differently. There's nothing wrong with it, and people can thrive. People can absolutely thrive. Like, I've seen it happen with the right support, with those outside agencies coming in and helping them to learn in a way that they can understand. What if they go through their whole school life and they never find out, because they're not going to get that outside help unless there's a diagnosis, right? So it's almost like, why not? It's giving someone the help to give them a chance to achieve and be successful. So in my head, I'm always like, I mean, it's difficult because I'm not a parent, so I can't really put myself in that position, but there's nothing wrong with it at all. There's I've had the most joy looking after children, all children, but children on the autism spectrum. I've had the best time. Like, they're brilliant. So I mean, I'm all for it. I'm pro diagnosis, pro anything that you can do to help people learn. So I'm always going to be very positive about that and wanting that. But it's a completely personal choice to anyone. I just know how much it's helped me. and how
Well, this
much
is
it has
it.
helped, you know, some
You might,
children that I've worked with as well. So
yeah, and you might not be the parent. You know, you said I'm not a parent. I can't put myself in those shoes, but actually you were the child and you've walked that
yes,
path. And
Yes.
that's you know, more than many parents will have even won't have even have had that experience. So I
Mhm.
think you're perfectly qualified to be able to, you know, have an opinion on it.
And I think we both agree, Kirsty, that as parents, if you go down that diagnosis route, even if they're not diagnosed with anything, at least you're on a list, and at least you feel like, yeah, that you're looking to see what it could be. It could be nothing, but at least they're on a list,
Completely.
because it's like 2 to 3 years at the
Yeah,
moment.
they're on a list that actually the support starts before they're diagnosed.
Yeah.
That certainly happened
Yeah.
in our circumstances, where Max was supported as much before he was diagnosed as he was actually after a diagnosis, because he was on the pathway. And also, I think it helped us start to process it emotionally as
Yeah,
well,
I
which is a
agree. I
real
agree.
journey. And, you know, having spoken to people who are right at the beginning of that journey, I can see how far we've come. And still how far we have to go with it, but how far we've come in the last, you know, year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. You definitely watched a journey there, and that was amazing, absolutely amazing. And
Oh,
like with me, I'm always going to have challenges. I'm always going to have triggers. I'm always going to have, you know, I had to stamp out that thing in my brain that was telling me there's a cure, because I think I genuinely believe like there is a cure to how I am. Like, and then one day I'm just going to wake up and I'm just going to think normally like everyone does. And also it's just because, you know, everyone has their stuff as well. It's almost like me assuming that everyone is fine and doesn't have challenges as well. Like people even who aren't on
for
the
sure.
autism
Yeah,
ADHD
yeah,
spectrum are going to
absolutely.
have challenges and things like that. So you're never on your own. But I think that if you are someone who is showing a lot of signs of it, then I think that, yeah, a diagnosis, that you can't go wrong with a diagnosis. And 3 years will come about. I was on a wait list for a little while, and it came about. It did come about. It seems like at the start that it will never come, and then I got cancelled appointments and things like that. But it does eventually. There's a wait list. You will get seen eventually. It might seem like a slog, and especially with an adult diagnosis, I mean, the wait list is even longer, and I really do feel for people that are waiting for that. But it will be worth it, just in my opinion, just to know, and just to have that knowledge of, okay, cool, that's fine.
Do you know what I'm hearing from you when you're speaking is you talk about a cure, so to speak, but I think your cure has been just acceptance of who you are.
100%, yeah. Acceptance is key, like for everything, isn't it? Just accepting. There's another kind of program that I work in. It's just like there's a few little things, and it's just like acceptance is a big thing. You know, admitting that, you know, accept the things you cannot change, but and have the courage to change the things that you can. And that's quite a key. It's a key thing for me to try, and I don't always do it, and I'm not always perfect with it, but I try, because there's nothing I can do. I can't change the past. I also can't manifest the future.
Yeah,
So
it's just a journey.
I can only really live a day at a time, and just think like, okay, what's next? What's the thing I need to do next? Okay, I need to do this. Okay. And mid meltdown, that is obviously not something that's going to be coming into my head ever. But what I try and do is, I know for next time, okay, there's a chance you could come in one day and you could be put in a different room. I know for next time, okay, there's a chance that could happen, and I have that sort of awareness now. So I can deal with that. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. Either that, or they're just never going to do it to me ever again, which I would probably advise. But
oh, Kat, thanks so much for joining us. You've been absolutely brilliant. It's been so
thank
wonderful
you.
to hear your story. It's really inspirational. Keep
Thank
going
you.
with your account, because I, for one, love it.
Oh, thank you so much. And again, thank you. It's been lovely getting to know you guys as well. I think what you're doing is amazing. So, and say hi to them for me.
Thank you, Kat, so much for joining
No
us. I really
worries.
appreciate it. Thank you.